on.
Yeah.
Red light that way. Great.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's great.
Yeah? Excellent. Okay. So I'll call the meeting to order. Number 1, check. And then the next is the meeting minutes from October. Right, okay. Which is essentially just the recording, which you shared with everyone. With the recording, you still need us to motion to approve and motion to accept, right? So I motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Great. Okay. So, and we don't have any reviews.
Nope.
So I believe the main discussion for tonight is the Montgomery County proposal that they brought to us.
And the election of board officers.
Yes. And I guess, I mean, does anyone have a preference for which we start with? I guess I do want to make sure we cover the board officers, just to have
I do want
done that. And we've got a reasonable number of folks compared to some of our past meetings, so maybe if everyone's okay with starting with that, we can
Sure.
do that and then have a little bit more of a discussion of the second part. So, Roz, do you want to outline what we need to cover?
So we need what we've usually referred to as a chair and co-chair, I mean, first and second. And Lucy, because you've served 2 terms in a row,
Right.
you cannot serve the next term.
That is
As
perfectly
either
fine.
position, as either co-chair?
You could
or-
be co-chair if you wanted to.
Okay. I do not feel strongly about
Yeah.
it.
And our co-chair, Willie Fisher, of course, has rotated off the board. So ordinarily, this would happen in March or April. There's a meeting that's designated as the business meeting, and for some reason, I think we didn't have a
Yeah, we had a
meeting for a
long-
couple of months in a row, and it fell off my radar, so we're playing catch-up now.
Okay. And Nick, you've been a chair and co-chair. Sorry, is
Yes.
it, do you go by Nick or Nicholas?
Nick.
Nick, okay.
Yeah.
That's, I realized as I was saying it last time, I wasn't sure if I was getting it right. Has
That's
anyone
correct.
else, just for context, or, I mean, my general impression of the role thus far has been obviously this, but then occasionally there's an issue that Roz will send to the co-chairs.
Right, or
Sometimes about
putting-
scheduling, like if there's a review or not, what we're gonna do,
Right.
it's not a big lift.
And I
Yeah.
think, is there still one presentation, annual presentation that you give to
There is
the,
That's a little bit
City
in
Council.
flux. What Nick's asking about is a presentation to City Council, because we have in the past done an annual presentation where the chair has gone to council. We've put together a PowerPoint with photos of projects that the committees reviewed in the intervening time. I don't think we did it last year. Council's agendas have gotten really packed.
Because
And
I don't
so
think we've done it.
It may take
Maybe
the
you did it with Willie
form, I don't know.
the year before, but.
I'll double check with the city manager if they want just a written report or want to get back into actually doing it. That seems like the way the city's handling their committees with their interaction with council is taking new shape maybe. So I'll check on that.
Nick, would you like to do it again?
well, I've done it, so I will defer. I don't mind doing it, but I'll certainly defer to anybody who hasn't
I'll
had
do
the
it.
experience who wants
Okay.
it.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
Good.
Okay?
Terrific.
Great.
And then we need a co-chair, and then you can vote all together if you want to.
And who was the co-chair after Will? It was Willie and I were together, and then
Did you
his
switch?
You
we switched, and then his term must have ended. Right, we were dealing with the lag. That's what I was trying to remember. Was after. It's not been that long since he was.
Yeah.
So we
on,
need a
okay.
new co-chair as well,
Yes.
is what you're
Yeah.
saying. So Anne, would you?
I'm gonna say no thanks, since we have other people who are open to it. Do you want to do it, Lorraine?
I'll do it. I'll
Okay.
be co-chair. Yeah.
All right.
Great.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Sweet.
Great.
And so we need a board vote,
Okay.
a nomination, or
So I nominate. And I'm sorry. Tell me. your name.
Malcolm.
Malcolm. Thank you.
No worries.
Norman was coming to mind, but I think I don't.
That's a
Malcolm.
first.
I'm not sure where I employed anything these days. Malcolm for chair and Lorraine for co-chair.
Second.
And all in favor?
Great.
Aye. Excellent. All right.
Okay.
Okay,
I'm sorry. And now we're recording, so that gets to be fully
No worries.
documented. Roz can't just admit that from the minutes.
It's all right.
thank you.
Great. All right. Well, that was easy enough. So then I think all of us but Malcolm were here last time for the county's presentation. Would
There's like
anyone?
two who were out last time. Forgot who he is. Yeah.
Eric
but
was out last
Eric
time, too.
also was.
I guess would anyone want to, or do you need an overview? I know Ross sent out material, but I did find it helpful to hear the presentation. So if anyone wanted to give a sort of brief summary of where we're at in our,
Do you want a brief
What-
summary?
I'll defer. Yeah. I don't need a.
You don't need to.
You don't need a
Yeah.
summary?
Mm.
okay,
I-
so then, yeah.
Just read
I
the.
think the question
Right,
is
okay.
if the board wants to make a statement about the change in the historic area work permit process that the county staff is proposing. And when we asked them last time when they were here presenting about the time frame in which they needed support, it really seemed like it was when it goes to county council
Right.
in January. So we have time to think about it, but I just thought the board might want a chance to talk about how you
Yeah.
feel about it and if you want to take the opportunity to weigh in.
There was a second aspect of that as well. It was, they were showing us their changes, which streamlines the process in a very wonderful way. So its staff is going to be able to review all the minor things that don't need to go before the Historic Area Preservation Commission itself, and that will expedite the whole process for applicants, which is wonderful. There was another aspect of that, though, the logistical aspect of it for us. And I was thinking a lot about that because, they want us to be excited about streamlining the process, and I certainly think we are. But how do we interface that with our process? And I was thinking a lot about that. And I'd like to offer, and I think, Nick, you thought of that too, a suggestion where people, where we still, people are still going to have to fill out a historic area work permit. There's still going to be that process. And if it pertains to our work, it can still come before us. And I don't see any difference in that. And the smoothness of that is that, on the applicant's end, it just simply means if it's one of those things that staff reviews, they don't have to wait, 24 days for review or 2 weeks for review. They can immediately, like a few days afterwards, staff will work with them and they would get their approval without going through the formal process. That doesn't affect us. Otherwise, we'd have to understand each and every one of these things and make a decision on our own, whether it falls under the staff's category. I don't think we want to do that. That sounds, who's going to do that? And that's going to take a lot of time and add another process. But it seems quite simple if the people just still come to us if they have a hop in the commercial area. And, we can, give our thoughts on it, and it will go to the HPC staff will consider it, or it will go on, if it's a major issue, it will go on to the commission. So, and then we don't have to worry about missing something that should, if we were doing it the other way, trying to say, oh, you don't need to come before us, and then we make a mistake, then that has to be rescheduled with us, and the scheduling is to me the most difficult thing for a lot of applicants. So it seems smoother to just, keep our process the way it is, right? And we get to see everything where a hop comes through that's in the, commercial area. And then it's either going to go to the commission or it's going to go to staff, and they figure it out. Does that make sense? I mean, to me,
Yeah, no, I think that sounded like, if anything, that sounded like how it worked, like how the current process would dovetail into what they presented. I think there was a little discussion last month of, is this an opportunity for us to think about what we do and don't see, and is there any reason to shift that? And I think, we can have a discussion about that if anyone feels like a shift would be valuable. But I think your outline of if we don't change anything and how it would plug
Yeah.
into what was proposed last month does make sense and is straightforward and
Right. And it's just
you
And
know,
it
has
doesn't
a
hold
simplicity
any-
on
Yeah.
continuity.
And it's not gonna hold, I mean, it's gonna be a very quick, if it's staff review, so everyone will be happy.
Right, everyone
We'll
would still
our
get that
opinion.
additional speed, it's just a
Yeah.
question of, I guess, was there anyone
Yeah.
who found the idea of us changing our process worth reviewing or discussing now?
I don't,
No, I just would, in their original, none of us seem to have it, in their original thing, they were initially proposing that the ones that they've determined to expedite don't go through what they call LAPs, which includes the facade advisory board.
They were, but
And
also.
so then, but then they said, if you all want it,
Right.
we cannot have that apply. But so I just wanted to make sure everyone's clear that that was that was their intention originally, was to skip the LAP because they've determined that they can be expedited, that they're so straightforward.
But wasn't there something about there was like one process that they follow with some and a different that they follow with us?
Well,
And so maybe that wasn't,
I don't know if
it wasn't
anyone has
initiative
it,
to
but
streamline it.
anyway, but it doesn't matter, because I think we're all in
Right.
agreement, and
Yeah.
that we just
Right.
tell them that we want to see them, and that
Yeah.
they will do
Right.
that. But I do think, because I think that their original intent, so I just wanted to make sure everyone understood that to really expedite it, they
Yeah.
wanted to
Would be to
take-
wipe the entire
Yeah.
process,
Yeah.
right?
yeah, but we're only talking a matter of days, I think.
It's
and-
fine, I just-
And we
yeah.
could make such a mistake by not taking something that ends up having to go to the HPC and then has to come back to us. I had a conversation with
Well, no.
Dan.
If it has to go to the HPC,
Yeah.
then it would go into the, okay, let's say it went with their original intent, which is
Right.
to take the local advisory panels out of what they consider to be expedited. The minute it's kicked in, for some reason, it's no longer expedited, it's going to the HPC, it would go through the normal process. So that other step wouldn't happen. It's only for the ones that they determine are so straightforward and meet these specific criteria that are
Right.
laid out in writing, and it has to meet all the
Right.
boxes. And then they wouldn't send it to, the Kensington Town Office and the, whatever the various local advisory panels, including the Takoma Park Facade Advisory Board. But if any of those local advisory panels says, no, actually, we want to see it, then they'll just, we'll get to see it. Isn't that your understanding too, Russ?
Yeah, and the way it works now is that the application isn't considered complete without a letter from the facade advisory board.
Right, that's right.
Weighing in one way or another.
Right, and so we would just leave that there.
So their proposed regulations address the process after the application is closed.
Yes,
So we
after it's
can-
complete.
We can send a letter saying we support the
Right.
change in regulation,
Yeah.
and to your point, clarify, we
Yeah.
would still like to maintain
Yeah.
our current process of
Yeah.
Right.
weighing in before the application
I think that's
is
exactly
closed.
right.
Right.
Or is
and-
complete.
And Dan clarified for me that the applicant would have to file a historic area work permit, whether it's being reviewed by staff or not.
Right.
So somebody on our side would have to make a decision as to whether or not it falls under the staff review category or not, and also whether we care to make that distinction.
No, they're
And-
making the distinction there about whether it goes to HPC staff or the full HPC, but we can either choose to review these expedited ones or not.
The way Dan explained it to me is that we had a chat about it. He says, it's not really gonna affect our process. We're gonna do whichever, you
But I mean,
decide
we're not
what you
making the
wanna see.
determination.
Yeah, I think it sounds like we've landed at
Yeah,
the same
if
place.
If we stay with looking at everything, everything's gonna come through the
Yep.
HOP. So whether it's
Yep.
staff.
I agree.
A review or a commission.
Yes.
We don't wanna have to make the decision as to who, because I don't know who would do that.
Yeah, but we're not.
And so and there might be stuff we wanna see.
Right.
So just see it, and it goes through their process, and they decide
Right.
whether it goes to the commission or whether it goes to staff. That's
Yep.
my understanding,
Me too.
speaking with Dan
Yep.
recently to clarify it, so.
I think too
Yeah.
that the board could choose differently at any time. So if we watch how this unfolds for the next year or two and then decide there are certain things that we're not interested in, you can revisit that.
Yeah,
That's not, that's how we intersect with HPC staff. And that's, where the application is determined to be complete. But I think it's pretty straightforward, and
I do too.
I can certainly draft a letter and circulate if the board feels like you're generally in support of the administrative procedures with a confirmation that we want all completed applications to include an FAB review.
Great.
Yeah,
Right.
I think this would be a good opportunity to put exactly that in writing so that we do them a courtesy that they're asking for, and also make it kind of formalized that we want
That's
to
true.
opt into keeping our process and having a chance to look at everything.
That's a good point, yeah. I'll do that and circulate it before the next meeting.
So then we would, so the process, you'll circulate it and then
I'll do a draft of a letter.
and we'll review it then at the next meeting and then we.
Or we
do
can
need to
have some
just-
conversation through email if
Okay.
people want to send me corrections.
Great.
It does raise the question about the frequency of meetings. Because we did not have many reviews this year and did not have many meetings, I shifted the schedule for 2020 to be every other month.
Oh.
And we can go back to an every month schedule,
see.
recognizing that we will cancel meetings if we don't have business that requires
Oh.
us to
Well, that's something we
convene.
could discuss now as well, is how we'd like to move forward. I think we had, Roz, that was something you had emailed me about, in the vein of things that come up for chair, co-chair. But I think we had shifted to every month meeting for last year and then needed very few of them.
Right.
But
So it had
but
been
we could
every
do
other
either
month.
model, and either way
Right.
require some degree of flexibility.
Right.
I certainly personally find that some version of consistency is helpful. Like I know when we had a version that used to be, was it 8 times a year that we would meet?
I think
Or
it
something like
was.
that, and that I had trouble keeping track of, because it was like,
Right.
not
Not
either
quite
every other,
month,
or, but what is the experience of having, I guess, first having what we did this past year of a meeting scheduled every month that we pretty routinely canceled? Was that,
Well, in some ways, I'd almost rather have the meeting scheduled, even if we cancel it, if there's no, because what I'm realizing now, Roz, making an applicant wait 2 months to come see us for something that might be very minor, or even not, something big, seems like a huge delay.
And in
s-
fact, that
Yeah.
wasn't the process. We would pull together an ad hoc meeting when we had an application with some urgency.
and we were often able to meet it, it was though,
It's
Right.
hard.
hard,
So
yeah, I
that's
mean, it
the-
was
To meet
generally
an
the
ad hoc
smallest
meeting.
meetings we would have.
And the
Um,
logic was, it was easier to have it on everyone's calendar
Right.
monthly, and then cancel it when we didn't have a reason to meet,
Right.
than to try and pull together the ad hoc meetings.
And so I think the ad hoc meetings can be problematic, and also being here where it's being recorded, right, might be problematic. So now I'm sort of rethinking. It seemed pretty straightforward when we were meeting monthly that maybe we could do this, but if we're meeting every other month with trying to pull together an ad hoc meeting but might not have recording space, and that might delay an applicant even further, maybe we need to think more about this.
So there's a burden on staff who need to be here to record, and so
Right.
they commit to every month whether or not we have a meeting. And so that's a different level of
Yeah.
commitment for them.
But they're here regardless. whether or
Sorry?
not- They're here regardless of whether or not we have the meeting or not, right?
No, they're here extra for this meeting.
Okay.
But they get advance notice like we do that's being canceled.
A week
and
ahead.
can- Yeah, so then
Okay.
they can adjust.
Is there, can we go back to every month? Can you reschedule that? I mean, should
I
we do
can.
that?
It's just that I felt an obligation to holding the room and holding staff time when we had I think we had 4 or 5 meetings
I
this
know.
year out of the 11 so far that we had scheduled.
know.
So I felt like there's an opportunity cost in that.
Do you, and is it every year commitment? Is there I'm wondering, is there a shorter increment, like,
We reserve the rooms for the
you
year.
do every full year calendar? Okay, that's what I was wondering,
Yeah,
if there was
so
like a 6-month or something, but, okay.
We could, but then we don't know for sure if we'll get them.
Have the room,
When we
right.
want them beyond that, so.
Because I certainly appreciate wanting to be mindful of staff time. I mean, it is evenings.
Right.
If we don't have business,
But it's also hard for us to do ad hoc because
Mhm.
there's a lot of stuff going on. So it'd be much better if we had a set time, even if we didn't use it in a way, I think.
Is it something where we could make the plan it monthly for the year and put a note in your documentation that 6 months in, we see kind of where things are at and discuss again? Because at least then you'd have the option of revisiting
Sure.
before the year's out,
Right, that makes sense.
so that you're not
Yeah,
requesting evening staff and space. I mean, just because again, this year, like we had quite a run over the summer and early fall without meetings. And we
Yeah.
still don't have much review. I mean, we're meeting for internal stuff, which is perfectly fine, but,
Well, do you want to do it the opposite way? Just,
start off lighter and then switch to,
just for every possible combination of suggestion, but start out with what Roz already has set up and see how the year goes, and if we say, no, we need to be meeting more often, then we change it.
I'm fine either way.
It just, if we do that, my concern is scheduling the room, and that's
That's the
harder for
risk.
you. If we
Right.
do it up front, then we know we're safe. If we wait and see, and then we have this crush, and I don't know if we will or not, but I mean, it's just trying to be mindful of balancing our time, your time, staff time, the applicant's time. But 2 months to make someone wait is just way too long.
Do the meetings have to be recorded? I mean, we didn't used to have this capability.
we didn't used to have, that's right, and that was a decision made for us at the
So they
change,
do have to be.
I don't know if they have to be.
I mean, if we could meet on, like, if we could all reserve in our own calendars the second Tuesday of the month, not necessarily reserving the room, and then if an applicant, one of these expedited applications comes along and needs to meet on the off month, and we met in a meeting room like we used to, and you took notes, it seems like, is that a possibility, or is it not a possibility?
I'll check.
Okay.
And is there an established amount of meetings we have to hold within a year, as well as that written somewhere, or we're just sort of winging it?
I think the city code says every other month
Okay.
as needed. I think there's a,
Caveat
That
there.
would seem right for most things. It'd be worth, confirming
I
that
can
too, I
double-check
guess, just to
that.
make sure. That's a good point. Because, I was thinking for some reason the 8 came from like a required minimum that we
Yeah.
used to do, but
Right.
maybe not.
yeah, I can double check that.
Okay, so did we land at, for now, we'll try the
Well-
every other and reevaluate?
I'll send
Well,
out a new
in July?
invite that's every month, and then we evaluate in July, and then.
We'll do every month then reevaluate in July. Okay.
Every month and reevaluate.
I think
Does that make
that's,
sense?
yeah,
And then I'll
I
double check
do.
on the rooms and
It's a
the
lot easier
Great, and then
for
you can figure out if that's
requirements.
that does sound like a light version, if that's,
I mean, but historically, like typically, like late winter, early spring is when people start ramping up for projects in the summer and stuff like that. So maybe we might experience an influx of things that need to be reviewed down that time. So maybe every month would seem reasonable. Just my gut feeling, and I don't know about historically, when we see spikes and
Oh,
like
yeah, it was-
activity and stuff like
yeah,
that.
that's a good question. I guess, have you observed any consistency? I feel like I haven't in the last
really.
few years. Like, there are spikes, but
Yeah.
it's
think it
more
Yeah.
unique circumstances.
I think there is some seasonal element to it.
Okay.
Of, particularly for exterior work, if somebody
Yeah.
decides they need a new door or something like that.
Yeah.
Also, really, we see people most when it's a new business that's opening, and they need
Right.
signage.
So it's a little more
an
like
awning or something like that.
signage,
So,
yeah.
and that's it,
Anytime,
yeah,
Right.
that's
Okay.
not predictable.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
I
so
think
every
it's
month.
also a lot harder for Roz to, if it's not recorded, it's a lot harder. And so if we could keep this system and just cancel it, that way we plug
Right.
into our schedules and we know, which is another concern.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I'll
Mhm.
definitely do an invite for every month,
Yeah.
and I'll
Right.
check the location, and if we vacillate between this room and another or
Yeah,
something
it's
like
easier
that,
to
we can
cancel.
do-
It's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not, have it. So,
Right.
Okay,
It was fairly easy to cancel it and just.
right. I mean, that's the city staff unfortunately, not to sound, blunt, but it's their job. Like, we don't want to inconvenience folks, but, that's sort of what they are here to do, provide a service, you know, just like
Mhm.
we're all doing. So I think I'm in favor of doing it every month. And
Okay.
going from there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Kind of keep it the way it is for now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Which I guess also leads the discussion into the formatting question and public comments that
Mm-hmm.
I have had on the agenda for a while. I would kind of put it out there because we said we wanted to revisit at some point to see if we thought it was working. We actually haven't had public comments much. So, so maybe we don't have enough input to reevaluate it. I don't know.
Yeah, so was the primary concern, I think initially, the amount of time we had, but I think we really only had
I think we
one public comment
Yeah.
to
or-
see how that.
Yeah, I think that might be right, or one meeting anyway. I think we set it at 2 minutes. We talked about the possibility of making it 3. It's been a moot point.
Did 2 match the city council? Was that
City
the-
council are 3. 3
Are
minutes for
I think we should.
public comments.
I think we should match council, but we have so few comments. that
Yeah.
it's just-
I mean, I think all this was mapped out in anticipation of the first time the junction came before us. Am I
Yeah.
Oh.
correct in thinking that it will come
It will
back
come back.
before us?
Mhm.
Yep.
I mean, I think the planning was for a bit more of a turnout than we had, which was
That's
fine.
fine.
There's been lots of public engagement, so it's not like this was the only avenue, but I think that,
Yeah.
I guess prior to that, we had another case where we did have, it was the fence where there was, I mean, it was public, it was the owner, but it was not the applicant. But it's rare that we do need it. I don't see any problem. I mean, I think the
Sure.
consistency with the city council seems like a good thing to me, so if we were on board with
I think
Okay.
shifting to 3 minutes for that alignment, and
I think
then we
that's
can
fair.
revisit if it comes up again, but
Okay.
we can get it, yeah, it's been on our old business list for quite a
Okay.
while, so. Was there
Okay.
anything else that came out of that,
don't
either in your
think
notes or
so.
that anyone else remembers from our prior discussions?
Okay.
Not
Okay.
really. I don't remember.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
Good.
well, that's it, correct? Anything else that you had, Ross?
Mm-mm.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
We're
you.
done.
It's good seeing y'all.
Yeah. So I realized